What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. I hope that you are enjoying your holiday season. This is the Monday edition of the show. It will be featured on my Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget, every Wednesday at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I will be on the Georgia Alabama Sports Live's Facebook page and YouTube channel. Still going strong after being away from the airwaves on WQEE for about a month now. I know that Ryan O'Neal misses it. I mean, he's been out of pocket, but hopefully he can come back and be at another radio station. I'm just excited that I have this platform that I can provide just the latest sports updates, as I've been doing this podcast for almost 5 years now. In January, it will be 5 years. It's been a lot of fun, but let's go ahead and get episode 956 out of the way. That's right. I'm approaching 1,000 episodes. And when I do get to 1,000 episodes, it's going to be a big event, and I'm just thrilled. I'm just ecstatic that I'm able to do a show. Sometimes I go an hour. Sometimes I go a half an hour. But we got a lot to get into, including Travis Hunter winning the Heisman Trophy. Should have been Alshon Jeanty? I mean, because it seemed like Dion was platooning for Travis Hunter, trying to influence the media for that Heisman vote. I mean, Travis Hunter's a dynamic player, but Colorado's not even in the college football playoff. Maybe Alshon Jeanty should have got the Heisman Trophy. All right, we've had NFL. We had a wild game, which I'm hoping that this could be this preview of the Super Bowl, the Bills and the Lions. I mean, that was just a fantastic game. Don't forget, the Atlanta Falcons are taking on the Las Vegas Raiders on Monday Night Football tonight. It's part of a doubleheader, which they also will have the Bears and the Vikings. The playoff picture getting a little bit more clearer. Patrick Mahomes is out with an injury. I personally, if I'm the Chiefs, I rest him against the Texans. Possibly rest him against the Steelers on Christmas. I know that, people who got the Netflix subscription and they're wanting to live stream that Chiefs-Steelers Christmas game. I mean, the Chiefs are going to play the Texans, and then they're going to turn around 4 days later and end up playing the Steelers. I mean, so that's not a good look for the NFL. We'll talk about the NBA Cup. The finals are set. The Milwaukee Bucks and the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to be playing in the Emirates NBA Cup in Vegas. Some big college basketball games. I mean, how about Auburn getting a big win over Ohio State in the Holiday Hoops Giving? You also had Georgia 9-1 on the season as they got a big win over Grand Canyon in the Holiday Hoops Giving, which was at State Farm Arena. And I'll get into the Columbus State Athletics, Columbus State soccer team. Their season comes to an end after losing to Minnesota State in the Final Four. River Dragons split a series with the Monroe Moccasins. You also have CSU Lady Cougars in action. They did fall to Eckhart College. I'm going to have Coach Matt Hauser, and Thrift's going to talk to Coach Robert Moore in keeping up with CSU athletics next week. But I do want to start the show talking about the things that we did on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. And personally, I took it upon myself on Saturday. I wasn't really doing a whole lot. I was trying to do a favor. Several people that I know were part of the archery invitational that was at Calvary Christian. I was like, yeah, I was going to go to Calvary just to cover it, for, not even an hour, maybe 20 to 30 minutes, just try to get some coverage, get some interviews. Well, I was there for 4 hours. I mean, pretty much by choice. I wanted to make sure that those archers got the coverage. And plus, the group that I was covering did show up a little bit later in the tournament. The tournament was going on since 9 o'clock in the morning, and it didn't wrap up until about 3. I was there for about 4 hours covering the tournament. It featured high schools from Trinity Christian, Lafayette Christian, Winbrook Middle School. That is a middle school in Columbus. They got to be featured there. And, of course, Calvary Christian was the host for this invitational, and I had a blast live streaming archery. I had 2 different cameras. I had one on the shooters, or one on the archers, and one on the target. I had the close-up on the target, and it really made the broadcast unique. And I appreciate all the support. I want to thank Coach Steve Smith, the athletic director of Calvary Christian, for allowing me to live stream this event on Georgia-Alabama Sports Live. It was a lot of fun. And then I turned around later that night and I live streamed the Shaw girls and Shaw boys taking on Sumter County in their first region game. So this past week, I produced and broadcasted 5 sporting events on Georgia-Alabama Sports Live, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, it is a lot of work, but this is what we do in the industry. We grind until the wheels fall off, and that's always been my motto. Is I just want to continue grinding, because Josh Pate once said that the grind is a blessing, and I stand by that in everything that I do when it comes to broadcasting. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. We did have a little bit of college football over the weekend. I mean, Mercer was in the FCS quarterfinal. They did lose to North Dakota State 31-7. But what a fantastic season for the Mercer Bears. How about Valdosta State? They punched their ticket to the NCAA Division II finals as they beat Minnesota State as they advanced. We had the Army-Navy game. Navy was able to defeat 22nd ranked Army, which means, are they going to have a new AP poll this week? Is Army going to fall out of the top 25, or is that already set in stone? Army-Navy, it's a huge deal, especially for all the service members out there, and such a great football game. And Navy was able to get the win. We had the Heisman Trophy presentation Saturday night. The finalists were Alshon Jeanty, Travis Hunter, Dillian Gabriel, and Cam Ward. And Travis Hunter becomes the first two-way player since Charles Woodson back in 1998 to win the Heisman Trophy. At one time, Travis Hunter was the #1 recruit in the entire country, and he shocked everybody when he signed his letter of intent with Coach Prime and Jackson State. And then when Coach Prime became the head coach of Colorado, not only did he take his son with him, both his sons actually, Shadur and Shiloh Sanders, he also took Travis Hunter, who has been playing elite wide receiver and corner for Colorado, who won 9 games this year, but did not make it to the college football playoff. I mean, they got very close, but yeah, they did not make it to the college football playoff. I personally would have given the Heisman Trophy to Alshon Jeanty with the numbers that he put up at Boise State. Alshon Jeanty rushed for over 2,000 yards, and he should have won the Heisman. And Boise State is the #3 seed in the college football playoff. It would have made sense to give it to Alshon Jeanty. But I guess that's the way that the Heisman voting, I don't really know what the criteria was. Don't get me wrong. I think that Travis Hunter had a fantastic season, but Alshon Jeanty was putting up video game numbers this year. He just had a fantastic season. If you look at the history of the running backs that rush for over 2,000 yards, like a Ron Dane, like a Ricky Williams, they win the Heisman Trophy. And I just don't understand why Alshon Jeanty did not get the Heisman. All right, some of the other things I do want to talk about. I do want to talk about some of the NFL scores that happened over the weekend. We're going to go ahead and start with probably the game of the week for NFL week 17, week 15. Lost my train of thought there. NFL week 15, Bills Lions, 48-42. The Buffalo Bills get the win over the Detroit Lions in Detroit. Buffalo is now 11-3. Detroit is now 12-2. Despite Jared Goff throwing for 5 touchdown passes, Josh Allen, who looks like an MVP candidate right now, with 2 touchdown passes, 362 yards passing, and James Cook with 105 yards rushing and 2 rushing touchdowns. You know, Detroit didn't run the ball very well. It was Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you had him on your fantasy team, he had a great game. Well, Detroit, they take on the Bears next week. They face the 49ers on Monday Night Football, and then they face the Lions, or they face the Vikings for possibly the division last game of the season. Right now, Detroit wants to try to get home field advantage. The Eagles are right on their heels, and they're nipping at their heels. The Eagles, they just keep winning. 10 straight wins for the Philadelphia Eagles. You remember when we thought that they were dysfunctional at 2-2? We thought that Nick Sirianni was going to get fired. Well, they had no problem against the Pittsburgh Steelers, 27-13. Jalen Hurts with 3 touchdowns, and he had a touchdown run, and he had 2 touchdown passes, one to A.J. Brown and one to Devonta Smith. I guess the feud with Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown is over. 12-2. I mean, I think the Eagles could get home field advantage. And to be honest with you, Pittsburgh's defense was able to stop Saquon Barkley, but the Eagles were still able to get the victory. Looking at their schedule, they're taking on the Washington Commanders next week. The Commanders right now, I think they're going to get the number 7 seed in the playoffs. That's going to be a good game. The Eagles are slightly favored, but I can see a scenario where the Commanders end up winning that game just because, you know, the Commanders need that game for the playoffs. And then take it on the Cowboys and then the Giants. And I think to myself that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be 15-2 and possibly be a 1 seed in the NFC. A team that has been rolling is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 8-6. Baker Mayfield throws for 4 touchdown passes. Not a good sign if you're a Falcons fan, because it looks like the Buccaneers are going to run away with this division. Just the way they have been playing, and that's a huge win. Same with the Cardinals. Cardinals get a big win over the Patriots. They are now 7-7. The Seahawks ended up losing to the Green Bay Packers. They are tied with the Los Angeles Rams at 8-6, which means with the 49ers being 6-8, I see a scenario where the 49ers get to play a last place schedule next year, and they get everybody healthy. Baltimore, 35-14 over the New York Football Giants. Lamar Jackson had 5 touchdown passes. And if you look at Baltimore's record, 9-5, but that's a team you do not want to play in the playoffs. The Baltimore Ravens are going to be a dangerous team. How about the New York Jets? They finally get a win, beating the Jacksonville Jaguars 32-25. Good performance by Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers. The Cowboys, after having just a heartbreaking loss to the Cincinnati Bengals and the way they lost, were able to get a big win on the road against the Carolina Panthers as Cooper Rush throws for a career-high 3 touchdown passes. This was a narrow win as the Washington Commanders defeated the New Orleans Saints 20-19. Jaden Daniels passes for 2 touchdown passes. The Saints had an opportunity to win this game, but failed on the 2-point conversion. You know, sometimes you got to gamble, and the Saints did just that. Bengals ended up beating the Tennessee Titans, and don't look now, the Bengals are 6-8 as Joe Burrow, if he was playing on a team with a much better record, he'd be a contender for MVP right now. You look at the Bengals, they're facing the Browns, the Broncos, and the Steelers. I mean, they could win all those games. I just don't know if the playoffs are going to be on the horizon for them. Kansas City, They beat Cleveland 21-7. This was one of those games. Patrick Mahomes got hurt. Carson Wentz did come in, but same old Jameis Winston throws for 3 interceptions, was sacked 5 times. It's just a culture with the Chiefs compared to the Browns. I actually thought that the Browns have enough players to possibly make it competitive with the Kansas City Chiefs, but it's the same old Browns. And Jameis Winston is not going to outduel Patrick Mahomes. Now, I am worried about the Mahomes injury. I'm wondering if they're going to sit Patrick Mahomes against the Houston Texans and probably play him on Christmas against the Steelers, because those 2 games are 4 days apart. And right now, the Kansas City Chiefs have a 2-game lead on the Buffalo Bills. So it would be wise to sit Patrick Mahomes just 1 game. I still believe that the Chiefs can be competitive with Carson Wentz under Andy Reid's system. But, that just goes to show that Patrick Mahomes is the MVP of the league. He is the real MVP and not Josh Allen. All right, the Texans, they're on top of their division. They got a big win over the Miami Dolphins, 20-12, as Nico Collins had 2 touchdown catches. We had the Broncos beat the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, Colts are starting to go downwards. Broncos, 9-5. Is Sean Payton Coach of the Year? I think so, especially with that Broncos defense with 5 turnovers to get the win and with a 9-5 record. And then you also have, I do want to talk about, the Rams beating the 49ers on Thursday night. It was just an embarrassing scene. Devondre Campbell ends up leaving the game early. Brock Purdy throws a bonehead interception, and it makes me wonder, is Brock Purdy going to get the big contract that he deserves? Well, I don't think he should get top 5 quarterback money. I do think that Brock Purdy is going to get paid, but he really needs to be in the next tier of quarterbacks, because you don't want to overpay for a quarterback that just seems to not get it done if he does not have Christian McCaffrey in the lineup, or Trent Williams for that matter. But if you look at the standings, as we still got 2 more games left to go in week 15, and then we get ready for those holiday games. It's going to be a weird schedule, because we're having Wednesday night football on Netflix on Christmas. Let's start with the AFC. The clear-cut number 1 seed is the Kansas City Chiefs. I do feel if they get home field advantage, I know you don't want to hear this, but the Chiefs are going back to the Super Bowl, and they have an opportunity for a three-peat. Although I don't think that they're going to three-peat this year, because I do think that either the Detroit Lions or the Philadelphia Eagles could end up beating the Kansas City Chiefs this year in the Super Bowl. Remember, the Chiefs' last 3 Super Bowl opponents, 2 of those games, they had a double-digit deficit to the San Francisco 49ers. In that Eagles game, they were down by 10. And then Kadarius Toney ends up getting a big punt return. And I just can't believe the Browns end up cutting Kadarius Toney. And I'm thinking the Chiefs might just sign him, because that's just what they do. But the Chiefs are a clear-cut number 1 overall seed. Number 2 seed would be the Buffalo Bills. And then the Steelers would be the number 3 seed. So there could be a possible divisional round playoff game between the Steelers and the Bills. And then Houston would be the number 4 seed. All right, so your number 5 seed right now would be the Baltimore Ravens, which means they would face the Houston Texans in the first round of the playoffs. Your number 6 seed would be the Denver Broncos, and the Broncos would end up facing the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first round of the playoffs. Number 7 seed right now would be the Los Angeles Chargers, who would play the Buffalo Bills in the first round of the playoffs. Over in the NFC, well, right now, the Detroit Lions have the number 1 seed, followed by the Philadelphia Eagles. Both teams are 12-2. And then we also have the number 3 seed would be the Seattle Seahawks. Even though they are 8-6, actually the Rams would probably be the number 3 seed. I think that the Rams would have the tiebreaker, which they play each other at the end of the year. So the winner of that game would end up winning the division. I'm gonna say the Rams are going to be top of the division with the number 3 seed, and then Tampa Bay would be the number 4 seed. So the number 5 seed, get this, Minnesota would take on Tampa Bay in the first round of the playoffs, and then you would have Green Bay going to the Rams or Seattle. It just depends on who would win that division. So, all right, let's go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, I'm going to talk NBA Cup. The stage is set. It's the Bucks and the Thunder for the NBA Cup in Vegas on Tuesday, December 17th. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about college basketball because the SEC is the best conference in college basketball. There's no question about that. All right, you don't want to go anywhere. It's a Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live, and we'll be back after this.
Georgia, Alabama. Sports Live will be your go-to for all your favorite high school and collegiate games this fall. From the Carver Tigers to the Columbus Blue Devils, the Harris County Tigers and Northside Patriots, the Glenwood Gators and Calvary Christian Knights, the Pacelli Vikings and Brookstone Cougars, to the Smith Station Panthers and Russell County Warriors, from CVCC, Pirates basketball and baseball, and every tournament from here to Macon. We are the #1 destination for anything happening in East Alabama and West Central Georgia. Be sure to like and follow us on YouTube and Facebook, and stay tuned for even more amazing ways we will be bringing Georgia Alabama Sports Live to you this upcoming season. We can't wait to come see you next.
Welcome back to the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Oh, we've had so much fun here on this show. Over the weekend, I'm going to talk some SEC college basketball. Auburn gets the 91-53 victory over Ohio State in the Holiday Hoops Giving at State Farm Arena. Auburn is 9-1. They are currently ranked second in the latest poll. I expect them to be right at number 2, taking on Georgia State this Tuesday. Tennessee, they are the #1 team in college basketball. They get a buzzer beater by Jordan Gainey to defeat Illinois, as they are still undefeated. I mean, you got Kentucky. They are 10-1. They end up defeating Louisville 93-85. If you look at the SEC, I mean, you've got 4 teams in the top 10. You got Alabama at number 7. You got Florida at number 9. Kentucky at number 5. And the worst team in the SEC is South Carolina with a 7-3 record. A team that doesn't even have any votes in the top 25. Georgia is 9-1, as Georgia got a big win over Grand Canyon. And, a team that went to the second round of the NCAA tournament last year, 73-68 in the Holiday Hoops Giving, as Asia Noel ended up scoring 17 points. Georgia's 9-1. They play Buffalo this Thursday. They play Charleston Southern this Sunday, and then South Carolina State on the 29th. I could see a scenario where they go into SEC play with a 12-1 record, which means they would be guaranteed to at least get an NIT berth. But this SEC conference is absolutely loaded. I mean, you got LSU that's 8-2. You got Texas that's 9-2. Remember, they went to the Sweet 16 last year. Vandy is 9-1. Texas A&M 9-2. They are ranked. Ole Miss 9-1. Missouri is 9-1. Mississippi State is 9-1. Just incredible. One conference that I do want to talk about is the ACC. Georgia Tech, they lose another game. They are 4-6 overall. They lose to Northwestern in the MKE tip-off, 71-60. And Georgia Tech is going to be taking on UMBC. And remember, they were a number 16 seed a while back. This Saturday, they are hosting Duke and getting a chance to see Cooper Flagg. And that's going to be at the McCamish Pavilion. I mean, I remember back in the day when Georgia Tech and Duke was a hot ticket. where it was hard to get that ticket. But now they do have some ACC packages where you'll have a chance to see Cooper Flagg at McCamish Pavilion. Right now, Georgia Tech is led by their leading scorer, Lance Terry, who's averaging 15 points a game. And some of the other local teams in the Georgia area, do want to talk about Kennesaw State because right now Kennesaw State is 7-3. They will face Santa Clara this Wednesday as they get ready for Conference USA play. And then we do have several other teams in Georgia, like Georgia Southern. They're going to take on Gardner-Webb. And, of course, Georgia State is taking on Auburn. And another team, I don't want to leave out West Georgia. They're having a tough season. They're in the Atlantic Sun, but they're 1-10. It's been really a tough year. They lost to actually, they did defeat Tennessee Tech on the 7th of December, but they did lose to Mercer in the SoCon A-Sun Challenge on December the 4th. So just a lot of basketball still being left to play. In January, I'm going to have my bracketology shows. That's going to be a lot of fun. But let's go over to the NBA because we got an NBA Cup game, the championship, this Tuesday in Vegas. It's the Milwaukee Bucks and the Oklahoma City Thunder. I was pulling for the Hawks on Saturday in the semifinal, but the Bucks were able to get the 110-102 victory as Giannis had 32 points and a double-double. And Trae Young did have 35 points for the Atlanta Hawks. Remember, this does not count towards the 82-game schedule. The Hawks are going to regroup. They're going to take on Victor Wembanyama, Chris Paul, and the San Antonio Spurs this Thursday. In case you're wondering, no, the Hawks are not playing on Christmas, but we do have some Christmas games, and this is really starts the basketball season for a lot of basketball fans. That 12 o'clock game, it seems like the Knicks are always playing at 12 o'clock on Christmas. The Knicks are playing the Spurs at 12. We got the Timberwolves and Mavericks at 2:30, a rematch of the Western Conference Finals. We've got the 76ers and the Celtics at 5. The Sixers, their record does not reflect that type of team they are. I still think that the 76ers, when they get Paul George back and he's 100%, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, this is a team to beat in the Eastern Conference. At 8 o'clock, we got the Lakers and the Warriors. The Warriors just acquired Dennis Schroeder from the Brooklyn Nets. And the Warriors, even though they're just not the same team, and they've started to rattle off some losses, I still like the Warriors, especially at the Chase Center. And there's something seriously wrong with the Lakers right now, 13-12 after they started 10-4. And then the 10:30 game, the Denver Nuggets, who are starting to look pretty good with Nikola Jokic taking on the Phoenix Suns, who, 14-11, but they still got the big three. Mike Budenholzer just trying to just sort out these egos, because you got Kevin Durant averaging 26 points a game, and Devin Booker's averaging 25 points a game, Bradley Beal averaging 17 points a game. The one thing I've been critical of the Phoenix Suns is they don't have a bench. You got Tyus Jones, you got Grayson Allen. You don't have a whole lot of depth, but they do have the big three, and that's why I think the Phoenix Suns are going to be a team that's going to compete in the playoffs. Such a great lineup of sports, especially during the holiday season. I'm actually going to cut back on my shows this week and next week, getting ready for the new year as I try to retool this show to try to fit my audience. You can always catch this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right. One more segment before I close the show. The college football playoff is going to take place starting this Friday, Indiana, Notre Dame. And then we've got a triple header of games. These are the only games that are happening. I know it's bowl season. We already had two bowls this past weekend. Jackson State defeated South Carolina State in the Cricket Celebration Bowl 28-7. We had South Alabama defeat Western Michigan 30-23 in the Salute to Veterans Bowl. And we also had Navy ended up beating Army 31-13. And so far, we've got a bowl game that's going to be tomorrow, the Scooter Coffee's Frisco Bowl, as Memphis is taking on West Virginia. We got two bowl games on Wednesday, Western Kentucky taking on James Madison, and then Cal taking on UNLV. Thursday, we got Georgia Southern taking on Sam Houston. Friday, we've got two bowl games, and then we have the first ever 12-team college football playoff. We got Ohio taking on Jack State, which Jacksonville State does not have a head coach right now. They got an interim coach because Rich Rodriguez has accepted the position to be the new head coach at West Virginia. Tulane taking on Florida. That's going to be a fun game in the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl. Jack State is taking on Ohio in the Cure Bowl. And then Indiana taking on Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a 7.5-point favorite against Indiana. I mean, the Battle of Indiana. This is going to be a lot of fun. I cannot wait. You got Riley Leonard, the quarterback for Notre Dame, going up against Curtis Rourke and the Fighting Signatis. Indiana has had just a great season. If you look at all their wins, I mean, yes, they did lose to Ohio State 38-15. Remember, they were up 7-0 in that game. Beating Michigan by 5, getting big road victories over Michigan State, and then just clobbering Nebraska 56-7. I mean, this is really where Indiana started hitting their stride. And their margin of victory, this was a team that was deserving of a college football playoff berth, and that's why they're taking on Notre Dame. And I think that the playoff committee wanted to put this matchup against these two teams from the state of Indiana. Saturday at noon, we got SMU and Penn State. Penn State is favored by 8.5. A lot of people think that Penn State has the easiest path to get to the championship, as they are taking on a team that a lot of people thought that Alabama should have been in this position. But when you look at what Rhett Lashley has done with SMU, I mean, they have looked fantastic this year. And SMU, led by their dual threat quarterback, Kevin Jennings. I'm not here to say that SMU is back, because in order for SMU to be back, they've got to compete for a national championship. Well, they are in the college football playoff, but we're talking from 1980 to 1984, SMU was the most dominant powerhouse in college football by far. It's not even close. Just their record that they put up, and they should have won a national championship in 1982. It's great to see SMU back in the spotlight, taking on a Penn State team. This is put up or shut up time for Coach James Franklin. You've got the quarterback. You got Drew Aller. Can he make the plays necessary with those running backs, Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen? Can Penn State, who has a very favorable path, if they beat SMU, they're facing Boise State in the next round. I honestly think that there's no reason why Penn State can't get at least to the semifinals. And then the 4 o'clock game, Clemson and Texas. Texas is an 11.5-point favorite. Some people are giving Clemson a fighting chance in this game, but that's going to be a good game. And then Ohio State and Tennessee. Ohio State's a touchdown favorite. I think that Ohio State could win this game because they have the most talented team left in college football, in the college football playoff. But Tennessee, with that up-tempo, high-powered offense of Josh Heupel, Nico Iamaleava, Dylan Sampson as a running back, I think this is going to be the game of the night, Tennessee and Ohio State. And these college football playoff matchups are just fantastic. And then the big question is, because Georgia is sitting there. They're going to play in the Sugar Bowl on New Year's Day, the winner of Indiana Notre Dame. And we know that Carson Beck is not going to play in this game. He's got a UCL injury. It's not as severe as Brock Purdy's UCL injury that he suffered in the NFC Championship game against the Philadelphia Eagles 2 years ago. But this is a significant enough injury for Carson Beck to not play in the Sugar Bowl. And it begs the question, can Georgia still win if Carson Beck cannot go? Is Gunnar Stockton just the quarterback that Georgia needs to be a dual threat quarterback, to use the weapons around him to win games? We saw this with Cardell Jones in Ohio State. Can Gunnar Stockton at least get Georgia to win the game against Penn State or Boise State or whoever they're going to play? I do think that they will end up beating Notre Dame in the quarterfinals, and then they will face Penn State in the semifinals. I actually think that Georgia has a pretty easy path to the national championship. So with that being said, I don't know if Carson Beck is going to go. I mean, there are some things that Carson Beck does very well. He can throw the football very well. He is big in big games, but just Gunnar Stockton gives you a dimension that you haven't had in a while. And so I think that Gunnar Stockton can also win you games. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm really looking forward to it. Boy, I tell you, we've had a fun show. I didn't really hit a whole lot on the local stuff in Columbus. I will save that for Wednesday's show. You can catch that on Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show. I'm going to recap the Carver State Championship as they are facing Burke County, and I'm also going to recap the Columbus Flag Football Championship that they are facing Southeast Bullock. I'm going to get into detail about some of the high school basketball games. Thrip Behringer and I just had our Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show. We do have a bunch of coaches shows this week, so I'm going to focus on that. Thank you once again for tuning in to another edition of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, and we will see you next time.